Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're jumping right into EP26W23, our AI weekly recap covering agents, policy, and some massive breakthroughs. We're looking at a wildly packed week 23, moving all the way from startup home cleaning robots to rival lab CEOs actually teaming up over bioweapon fears. Let's get right into it. Here's our roadmap for today. First up, agents, hardware, and data. Second, tech policy and security. Then we'll hit creativity, business, and education. And we'll wrap up with frontier models and future risks. All right, kicking things off with Chapter 1, Agents, Hardware, and Data, building the physical and scientific foundations. So, there's a staggering amount of money being thrown at everyday human chores right now. Take the startup Micro AGI. They're offering totally free home cleaning in New York through their Shift app. But here's the catch. They equip vetted cleaners with point-of-view cameras. They call it a magic hat. Basically, they're capturing high-quality, real-world physical data for robot makers. And this model has already paid out over $5 million to humans globally just in the first quarter, at about $20 an hour, just for first-person chore footage. It's wild. It really shows that the next goldmine of AI training data isn't just being scraped off the web anymore. It's literally being filmed right inside our living rooms. Now, moving from sweeping floors to theoretical science, Inherent Labs just burst out of stealth mode with $50 million in the bank. This crew is led by ex-DeepMind folks, and they're building a platform called Faraday. Instead of just building a chatbot that answers prompts, Faraday actually pairs researchers with self-improving agents to figure out which high-value scientific problems are even worth pursuing in the first place. Think about that for a second. They are taking that recursive, self-improving logic we see in model training and applying it to the entire scientific research organization itself. It's an absolute paradigm shift. Of course, to run all these autonomous agents, we desperately need a hardware pivot. And NVIDIA is completely leaning into this. At Computex 2026, they revealed a massive strategy shift to prioritize AI agents across their whole tech stack. They announced the Vera processor, which is essentially a CPU built from the ground up specifically for agents. And it operates 1.8 times faster than its closest rivals. To put that into perspective, we're watching a $5 trillion company reorganize its entire hardware lineup to support software that honestly didn't even exist a couple of years ago. We are witnessing a fundamental shift in computing power right before our eyes. That brings us to Chapter 2, Tech Policy and Security, Navigating Government Interventions and Vulnerabilities. As these foundational models scale up, they're obviously colliding with government policy. Senator Bernie Sanders just previewed the American AI Sovereign Wealth Fund Act in a New York Times op-ed. The core idea of this bill is to route a 50% equity stake from top AI companies directly into a public fund, which would then pay out dividends to the American public. He's citing Alaska's oil dividends as the precedent here. So it's framed as a one-time tax collected in equity, which would actually give the government voting power and board seats at labs like OpenAI and Anthropic. The stated goal here is just to ensure ordinary people get a financial cut of AI's rapid growth. But while lawmakers are debating big-picture wealth distribution, Meta was busy dealing with a glaring, immediate security flaw. We saw hackers successfully take over some incredibly prominent Instagram accounts, including dormant profiles for Barack Obama and the head of the Space Force. And the method was staggeringly simple. There was no complex hacking involved. They literally just spoofed a VPN near the target's location, asked the Meta AI support bot for a password reset and an email change, and the bot just handed over the access code to the new email. That's it. It perfectly illustrates how traditional social engineering is now essentially fully automated by AI. Despite these really obvious industry security warnings, Microsoft went absolutely all in on an agentic future at Build 2026. They showcased 7 brand new in-house models and unveiled an always-on autopilot agent named Scout. Scout just hangs out in teams and proactively schedules your meetings for you. On the hardware side, they announced a massive 1,000 times reliability improvement in their Majorana 2 quantum chip. So what Microsoft is doing here is positioning Windows and Microsoft 365 as the ultimate indispensable control layer for all these new agents, which really carves out a bold path for their independence from OpenAI. Shifting gears back to federal oversight for a second, U.S. President Donald Trump signed a new executive order. It asks AI labs to voluntarily submit their frontier models for a 30-day security review before they are released. Now, this is actually a really significant mechanical softening from the initial draft, which proposed a mandatory 90-day window. The administration's stated reasoning for walking that back was specifically to avoid getting in the way of the US AI race with China. So they're prioritizing development speed while keeping a voluntary window open for the government to check for cybersecurity flaws. Moving on to Chapter 3, Creativity, Business, and Education, AI in the Real World. So, how are these incredibly powerful tools actually being used in the real world right now? Well, we just got a massive moment for the creative industries. Legendary director Martin Scorsese publicly endorsed the use of AI in filmmaking. He actually partnered with Black Forest Labs to use their FLUX model specifically for storyboarding his new film. Scorsese argues that being able to instantly generate and share a storyboard is a completely freeing creative tool. But he made it very clear he is strictly using this as a pre-production aid, absolutely not as a replacement for human actors, actual sets, or real footage. And Scorsese's backing couldn't have come at a better time because it aligns perfectly with the launch of Ideogram 4.0 and Ravid 2.0. These two new image models are a huge deal because they finally kill off that old slot machine style of prompting, where you just re-roll over and over, crossing your fingers for a lucky output. Instead, these models allow for granular, code-like layout editing using labeled segments and JSON. This means designers finally get true, precise creative control. You can tweak one tiny specific part of an image rather than just nuking the whole thing and regenerating it from scratch. Over on the commerce side, Meta just flipped a massive switch. They globally launched their business agent platform across WhatsApp, Messenger, and Instagram, and the adoption is already staggering. Over 1 million businesses are actively utilizing these AI agents to answer customer questions, recommend items, close sales, and book appointments, all across multiple languages seamlessly. We are looking at a truly massive, invisible integration of AI into our daily consumer interactions. And the impact in higher education is just as wild. A blind Stanford study recently revealed a stunning shift. They took 16 contract law professors and asked them to blindly evaluate answers to complex office hour questions. Half the answers were from their actual human peers, and half were from Google's AI models. The AI tutors ended up preferring the AI's answers an overwhelming 75% of the time. Remember, these aren't just simple multiple-choice questions. We are talking about highly subjective legal scenarios that require deep, critical judgment. And the AI tutors just completely blew the human law faculty out of the water. Which brings us to our final segment, Chapter 4, Frontier Models and Future Risks, the Horizon Line. As these tools handle more complex logic, we have to look at the looming horizon of frontier models that literally build themselves. Anthropic just published a highly concerning report on RSI. That stands for Recursive Self-Improving Systems. They dropped a staggering statistic. As of May, over 80% of Anthropic's recently merged code was authored entirely by Claude itself. Because of this AI assistance, their human engineers are pushing 8 times more code per day in Q 2026 than they were just 2 years ago. They explicitly noted that the next version of Claude could very well be built almost entirely by the current version, with barely any human involvement. It's like watching a sci-fi movie play out in real time. Concurrently, OpenAI just rolled out a massive dreaming memory update for ChatGPT. Basically, the system now constantly builds a categorized, highly personalized profile of you in the background while it's idle. This background dreaming is incredibly effective. It actually doubled the model's factual recall, jumping from around 41% up to nearly 83%, and it similarly doubled its ability to seamlessly follow user preferences. It is a massive leap in continuity and hyper-personalization, but it definitely raises some questions about data permanence. But we have to end the week on a fairly sobering note. The CEOs of OpenAI, Anthropic, DeepMind, and Microsoft actually set their fierce corporate rivalries aside to sign a joint open letter to Congress. They issued a very stark warning. AI systems today now outperform PhD-level virologists, specifically when it comes to highly technical lab procedures. Because these historical knowledge barriers are eroding so quickly, these leaders are urging immediate, mandatory screening and verification for all synthetic DNA and RNA sales to prevent bad actors from potentially creating bioweapons. When the biggest rivals in tech team up to warn us about something, we should probably listen. Looking back at this incredibly fast-paced week of breakthroughs, from chore-doing robots to AI models autonomously coding their own upgrades, all the way to rival CEOs uniting over existential bioweapon fears, it all boils down to one absolutely crucial question. Are our regulatory institutions actually equipped or even capable of adapting fast enough to govern a world where AI is rapidly building itself? It's a huge question, and one we all need to be thinking about as we head into next week. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer on Week 23's biggest AI developments. I'll see you next time.